This episode is brought to you by freedadcourse.com. You are always one conversation away from changing your life, and the power of hello is something that I subscribe to every single day, and I'm always saying hello to new people everywhere I go. Increasing your opportunity, increasing your connection, and getting access to the solutions to the problems that you are facing, whether you're on active duty or just beginning your veteran transition or even transitioning out for 20 years. On the other side of hello are the solutions that you're looking for. Again, head on over to freedadcourse.com. Get your 5-episode audio course to create more connection, create more friendships, and get back to living the life that you're trying to design.
Dory 1, this is Fire Team Delta. Dad's coming home. Welcome to the Military Veteran Dad Podcast, where it is our mission to bring every dad home. I am your host, Ben Killoy. I'm a United States Marine veteran, husband, and a father. We will bring authentic conversations to inspire action in your life so we can close the gap between the dad you are today and the dad you want to be tomorrow. This is the Military Veteran Dad Podcast. Chris is the father of 3. He served in the U.S. Air Force from 2008 to 2012, and that's where he developed his passion for fitness. After the military, Chris got certified as a personal trainer through NASM and began helping others take control of their health and fitness. As a kid, no one in Chris's family made health a priority, and they suffered from a myriad of health issues as a result of poor nutrition, lifestyle habits, and lack of exercise. This included his own dad, who had a heart attack at 50 years old. When Chris became a dad in 2012, he knew that he wanted to set a better example, and that is when he truly gained his passion for pairing fatherhood, fitness together. Chris is now a member of several dads groups online, including his own group, The Driven Dad, where he helps dads work on their health and fitness goals in addition to training a number of dads directly. Chris is committed to helping men improve their health and fitness and ultimately their life so they can maximize their roles as husbands, fathers, and men. Chris, thank you for coming on the show today, and I'm glad that you are telling your story today. Can you describe a little bit what your family looks like now and some gaps from that intro?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a family of 5 now. We actually just recently welcomed our youngest child, who just turned 3 months a couple of days ago, a daughter. So that's our 3rd child. We have a girl who's going to be 5 here very soon, our son who's about 2.5. And then, as I mentioned, the youngest who's just turned 3 months old. So it's me, my wife, and 3 little monsters. That's where we are right now.
I love seeing your pictures on Facebook. It's so catching up to where I am at, because my youngest is 2, and I remember that when you took on that 3, it's craziness. We both got the same combination, girl, boy, girl. So
yep, it's a whole new ball game taking it from 2 to 3, but we're adjusting pretty well, honestly.
It's always interesting. You got to kind of look out for your son, because he's tag teamed on both sides by girls, and
yep.
I always get a little bit sad when he starts playing with all the girl toys, but that's when I was like, okay, Dylan, let's go play trains.
Yeah, pull him in and go do something with him. There you go.
Well, thank you for coming on for the show, and I'm glad to tell your story and help the other dads come home. I'd like to ask the first question is, what does it mean to you when you hear the word dad's coming home?
So for me, I think about in the context of, coming home in, obviously my physical house, but coming into the house and just being there with my family, being comfortable, being surrounded by the people that mean the most to me. So that's kind of where I picture in my mind, is just coming in, being undistracted by things in life and work and whatever else is going on, just spending time with my family.
Do you have any stories that you can share from your military experience where you observed dads not coming home, where you saw the other side of the coin where they were disconnected?
Oh, yeah. I would see a lot of that. I spent a year over in South Korea when I was in the Air Force. That was actually my first duty station. And I saw that, when you went over there, a lot of times that folks wouldn't bring their families with them. And that would lead to scenarios where guys I'd be working with, they would I'd be a sounding board for them, and they'd be venting about, being away from their family. And you'd start to see the strain that would take place, being away from their spouse and then maybe growing distant, getting frustrated at each other, being so far apart, not having time together physically, and it just starts to take a toll on people, and it, spills over into their work performance and just kind of general overall attitude. It just really impacts guys big time.
I didn't know you were stationed in Korea. Were you on Osan?
Yeah, I was at Osan Air Base. Yeah, back in 2008 and 2009. Yep, first duty.
That's awesome. My first, when I went to Okinawa, we did a pit stop on the military flight in Osan, and I remember landing on the runway and looking on the right side and seeing the missile batteries pointed north, and I'm like, okay. I'm in South Korea.
Yeah.
And little did I know I would go back there 4 more times with deployments from Okinawa, and Oksan was our Liberty vacation where we would go to have fun get away from the training and to drink a few beers and other stuff.
Yeah. It was the first duty station, first duty station in the military. It was an interesting assignment, just being, 21 years old and, all the way on the other side of the world away from home. It was a lot of fun, maybe not the best duty station for a 21-year-old young man, but a lot of fun. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
I remember I had to take someone to the emergency room there, and I remember walking through there and seeing 12-inch blast doors on the emergency room. Like, man, this is real here. They don't mess around.
Yeah, it's interesting. They, a lot of the base is set up that way. That a lot of bunkers and other facilities that are hardened in that nature. Just in case whatever the scenario is, something would occur, they'd be able to hunker down and kind of keep operational at that point.
I always liked South Korea because Okinawa, it was always nice, but South Korea always felt more American. They just didn't speak English. Like, I felt like they had road rage. They had personalities that were a little bit more aggressive. They would joke, they would laugh. Okinawans were kind of very mellow people. And South Koreans always made me a little bit less homesick, except they didn't speak English.
Yeah,
I was the only one that had that viewpoint, but
I've actually never been to Japan, but I will say, being stationed in South Korea, like, they're very welcoming for the most part. It wasn't uncommon to go off base and venture out into the neighboring cities and stuff like that and have a great time. And a lot of ways they liked American culture. One thing that was really big over there was karaoke. You'd see karaoke places all over the place, and it was like a huge thing. But they're very welcoming overall, to Americans and military members.
What are 3 time bombs that have enabled you to come home?
So I guess for me, wouldn't necessarily give you 3, but the biggest thing is just like, spending time with my kids. Like I said, just maybe setting limits in terms of electronic devices, like being on my phone, being on my computer, thinking about work and other things that I have going on, just getting down on the floor. Like, my kids love when I get on the floor and just kind of wrestle with them and crawl around and just be crazy and play with them, and it seems like, no matter what I have going on, if I just do that, it kind of clears my head. And that's what they seem to value the most with me, is just like being crazy. And, I just come up with a ton of little games that we play that, maybe make no sense to an adult, but, to them, it's like the coolest thing ever. So just,
is your son,
what's that?
Is your son's love language physical touch?
Yeah, I would say so. He just loves, it's actually my oldest daughter who loves wrestling around and being crazy and just running around, being wild. But our son definitely gets in the mix now too. So we just come up with all kinds of little games where we'll run around the house and play. And like I said, just turn off the phone, or setting it down away from me, getting off the computer, turn off the TV, that kind of stuff, just getting down and playing with them, being goofy and not worrying about everything.
I hear you. My oldest daughter's love language is physical. Not physical touch, but time and spending time with her. And so just like having breakfast or just going out and getting a pretzel at the mall, those simple things are where and my son's is physical touch. So he just like wrestling and getting tickled. And my youngest is still too young to figure it out. She just kind of goes around with everybody else is going on.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, for sure, man. In this day and age, like, I feel like we're so distracted by cell phones and computers and whatever else, and, nothing kind of gave me a reality check more than when, like, my oldest daughter started getting conscious of the fact that, like, maybe dad's on his phone or something like that. And that kind of drove me to try to make an effort to, like, set boundaries, not be on my phone in certain time periods of the day when I'm with them in the evening, and just spend more time with them. Honestly, that's the biggest thing. Just spend time with them, play games, be silly, watch when they're trying to show you something that they're proud of, and just not be distracted. So it's a work in progress, of course, but it's something that I'm actively, consciously trying to do.
I agree. And it's so simple that one of the very first lessons or piece of advice I would ever give a dad is the kids spell love TIME. And that lesson is like something to remember over and over, because it can easily be forgotten when you try to think of a vacation you want to do or anything, because you can overly complicate it yourself. But in the end, they really just want your time.
Oh yeah.
And it's so hard, so easy to forget that.
That's the truth for sure. It's easy for me to slip into the habit of thinking that I'm working hard, for my family, or wanting to, accomplish whatever kind of financial goal or something along those lines, a career goal. But they don't care about all that stuff. All they want me to do is play with them and spend time with them, so it's easy for me to get caught up in those things, but then I have to pull myself back to reality and remind myself that they don't care about that. They just want to play. They just want to have fun. They just want to, have my attention.
Awesome. What do you want your kids to remember about you when you're 30?
When they're 30, I want them to remember, I want them to remember that I cared, and was just supportive and always been there, the best I could be. And the biggest thing for me is I want them to remember that I tried to be the best person I could be for them. We're all flawed. We all have our strengths and weaknesses. But I want them to remember that I was always, consciously working on my weaknesses to be a better person and be the best dad and, husband and father that I could be to them. And, I was engaged. I wasn't just disconnected. I wasn't just, kind of around in the vicinity when they're growing up. But, I truly was concerned about what they had going on, what they were passionate about, what they were excited about, that I cared. That's the biggest thing, is that I care about them.
I've heard the question of thinking about what your kids will remember when you're 30, reflecting on that. What will your kids want to tell their friends at a bar when they're 30 about their dad? Like, what are those key words? What are those memories that you want them to hopefully repeat? And it's like what you just said. And that question can easily disconnect a lot of the worry too. You're like, this isn't going to matter. This isn't something they're going to want to talk about to their kids when they're 30 or any of that stuff.
Yep. Yeah. A lot of stuff I get caught up, super, I consider myself pretty motivated. I'm always trying to achieve something or chase the next goal. But they don't really care about any of that. I just want them to know that I care about them, and that at the end of the day, I supported them. I was always there for them. And, I tried to steer them down the right path, but let them be their own individuals at the same time. And just, like I said, was present, was engaged, wasn't disconnected, wasn't absent.
I had someone give me some advice once that you can tell your kids that, like, how you're still trying to figure out you're 6 years old and figure out how to be 6. Well, I'm still figuring out how to be 34. And no matter what level of life you're at, you're still trying to figure out that age of how to be successful at it. Yeah. And so many of our kids look at us as like, we should have it all together and be like, I'm still trying to figure out 34, just like you're still trying to figure out 6.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mentioned before. I want them to know that, I'm not a perfect person. I have, a lot of flaws. I may lose my temper, or I may, get distracted, or, but I want them to know that I'm consciously working on trying to improve myself, so that I could be the best person I could be for them.
As a dad, what is your scariest moment, and what did this moment teach you, and how did it enable you to grow as a dad?
So honestly, the scariest moment for me as a dad was actually the moment that I became a dad. It was the moment that I held my first kid. Because up to that point, I was just kind of, shirking responsibility, living below my potential, just kind of drifting through life, making poor decisions. And I knew, I was conscious of the fact that I was doing that. But when I held this person, that I realized, like, now I'm responsible for this person. They're going to depend on me, to provide for them, to, teach them lessons, to be, an example, like, for example, my daughter, to be an example of what a man should be, how a man should treat her. It really, really was a wake up call, and that moment helped me grow as an individual. That's what kind of kicked me off on trying to improve myself as a person, and not just drift through life, but, be the best person I could be. So I wouldn't look back, and, they wouldn't look back and just know that dad kind of lived through his potential, lived below his potential, just kind of drifted through life, didn't try too hard, didn't really try to improve himself, wasn't conscious of his weaknesses and trying to grow as a person. It just really was a wake up call that, this person's going to depend on me now.
Did you find that you were drifting as a veteran between getting out of the Air Force and getting married, and to that moment to when you become a dad? Yeah. Or you were slowly starting to wake up?
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I wouldn't say I was necessarily drifting. I was making a lot of poor choices. I was drinking a lot and just, not really excelling academically or in my professional career, just kind of was comfortable, right, and complacent. And, when I held them and when I became a dad, because in the military, you have kind of a clear mission and what your role is and what you should be accomplishing and what you need to contribute. But after I got out of the military, I didn't really have that. So, once I became a dad, like it kind of opened my eyes, like, this is what I need to be doing. This is my purpose now. And, kind of gave me a direction that I was just kind of like I said, I was kind of drifting and just kind of in a fog and just kind of, drifting through life. And it kind of opened my eyes and showed me exactly like what I need to be doing now, what is important.
I've heard a legacy best described as planting seeds in a garden you never get to see grow. What do you want your family's legacy to be?
So, for me, I come from an interesting background. Like I was raised by a single mom. My mom had me when she was 15, and I didn't meet my own father until I was 7. So I want my children to look back and see a lot different picture than what I think of when I think of my childhood. Not that it was, bad. I'm not complaining by any means, but I want them to look back and see, two loving parents that stuck it out, when times got hard, and two people who did the right thing. When life is not always easy. It's, there's a lot of difficulties there, and I want them to see two parents who loved them, and did their best for them. And, we're focused on helping them grow and helping them succeed and seeing them thrive as individuals.
That's going to be an awesome legacy. I always like how Dave Ramsey talks about changing your family tree, and your family tree is definitely changing and growing into a better tree.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's, that's kind of what motivates me. Like I said, not that, my childhood was the worst thing in the world, but there's a lot of things that I was, I seen and that I saw and I was exposed to, that I hope my kids never have to experience. But at the same time, a lot of those things helped me grow into who I am today, because you don't always need the best examples. Sometimes bad examples can serve as, a crystal clear picture of what you don't want to do and how not to be.
There was a story that I heard from the book that Tom Brokaw wrote, The Greatest Generation, that the greatest generation were the greatest generation because of the adversity they went through from the Great Depression. But when asked when one of the things that they said they could wish for their family to be different, it would be that for their life to be easy. And looking back on that, the book reflects that they wish their kids to have less of what the one thing that made them who they were. And so many times we want our kids and families to be better, to not have the struggles we did growing up. But in reality, those were the ones that made us who we are. You wouldn't have been as tough as nails fitness coach as you are now, willing and helping motivating dads without those early struggles. And I just find it interesting that the greatest generation wished the one thing that helped them become that, not for their kids, because they didn't want that adversity and that suffrage, but that was exactly what made them that.
Yeah, I think that's a really critical thing. And I think more and more people are becoming conscious of it. I'm a big fan of Jordan Peterson, for example, and he's an intellectual, Western intellectual. And he talks about, how you want to put your kids in a position to where they could potentially fail, but not to where their failure would be so great that it would crush them and deter them from ever trying again. But you want to put them in a position where they have to struggle. I see it sometimes in friends and family who kind of have people who coddle them and protect them from the realities of life. And those individuals have a hard time when they grow up and enter society. They have a hard time thriving and being successful because they've had someone there do everything for them and protect them from the hardships that they may have encountered. So that's an interesting balance. Like I said, I'm trying to provide a better life for my family than maybe I had when I was growing up. But at the same time, I need to be conscious that I want them to struggle. I want them to be in difficult situations that they have to overcome. I don't want to keep them protected from everything, because if I do, they're not going to be prepared to face the adversity that life's inevitably going to throw their way.
What advice would you give a dad looking to come home to his marriage?
So ironically, in my opinion, like you mentioned, time, kids spell love time. I feel like that's the same thing in a marriage. And as you have more children, in my opinion, it becomes exponentially more difficult to have that time. For instance, we have 3 kids right now under the age of 5. So things are hectic. It's like as soon as we get off of work in the evening or whatever it is, we're, trying to get the kids fed, spend time with them, give them our attention, get them bathed, make sure they're learning and doing the things that they should be doing. But it's easy to forget about each other. So you got to try and make those times for yourself, for the marriage, not only as an individual, but also for the marriage, make time for each other. It doesn't have to be going out for a date. Maybe it can just be, hanging out at home and talking, listening to some music, having a glass of wine, if that's your type of thing. But just spending time together, especially in my case, my wife stays home with our 3 kids. So at the end of the day, she's beat, she's been around kids all day. She just wants another adult to talk to, someone to spend time with and have an adult conversation. And the biggest thing for men is you feel the need to fix everything. So as soon as she starts saying something about a struggle she's having or a problem, I always want to propose a solution. And I find that that's not actually the best way to go about it. Sometimes you just need to let people talk and just kind of listen. And that's something I'm actively working on myself.
What is a resource or a book you would recommend to another military veteran dad, and why?
So ironically, my favorite book is actually a book called Resilience. It's written by a guy named Eric Greitens. He's actually a former Navy SEAL, and he is a current governor, I believe, or a former governor at the least. But the book is actually a series of letters that he wrote to a fellow Navy SEAL who got out of the military and kind of had lost his mission or purpose in life. And, so in that book, Eric Greitens goes through a series of letters to his friend, and he shares a lot of lessons that have been, passed down throughout generations of society, human civilization, back to the Stoic times. He draws a lot from the Stoics. And the book kind of takes you through a series of letters that talk about how to become, a part of society, how to become part of your family, part of a community, how to show up your best for, those that depend on you, those that love you, and just the broader society. And, I found that book, since it draws on so many generations of human civilization and so many great lessons, I found that book incredibly powerful. And it's my favorite book, actually, because it talks about adversity, that we're going to face in life and how to overcome it.
That's an awesome book, and thank you for sharing that. I always like, there's something that comes off of you as far as a weight on your shoulders when you start to realize that this isn't the first time someone's had this problem on Earth, that it's a repetitive process of thousands and thousands of times, and every one of them survived, and it wasn't life-ending. I remember maybe 2 years ago, I realized that the only thing the end of the world is the end of the world, and it's all just perspective and relative, and we just need to move forward through it.
Yeah, that's what's neat about the book, and just in general about history, is like you start to read and look into those type of things, and you see like people were dealing with the same kind of things for hundreds, even thousands of years. It's just not maybe a different circumstance, different comforts in life, electronics, computers, whatever the case is, but at the end of the day, we're still people, and we still have the same type of emotions and the same type of hardships, that we need to overcome as individuals and as a society in a lot of ways.
Awesome. Well, Chris, thank you very much for coming on the show today. If people want to get in touch with you, where can they find you?
So I can be found on Facebook at the Driven Dad is kind of the Facebook page and the group that I've created. It's a group that focuses on fitness for dads and husbands, trying to reclaim their health and fitness. Same thing on Instagram at the Driven Dad as well. And then if, I actually run an 8-week health and fitness boot camp that's focused on dads, getting in shape and taking back control of their health and fitness and just being able to show up their best for people that rely on them. And you can find that at thedrivendad.com as well. So, there you go. It kind of makes it easy, but whether it's website, Instagram, Facebook, anywhere like that, when you're looking to, look for me or find my content when it comes to fatherhood and fitness, you can find me at any of those places.
And I'm a first-time member of that group, and it's done wonders for me. And I'm now almost 8 months into waking up at 5 a.m. and going to the gym because of that program. Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, it was great to have you in there. And, we've worked with quite a few dads since then. And, we just keep trying to make things better. And in my opinion, there's a lot of ways that we can improve ourselves. But, I find that fitness is one of the best ways to do that. You wake up, you get a workout in, you feel better about yourself, you look better, you get confident, you get strong, and it kind of spills over into countless areas of your life.
And I find the first thing I started conquering wasn't any types of physical muscles or anything like that, but it was limiting beliefs that you had of yourself, of what you could be capable of doing by choosing a weight and then realizing, well, that was easy yesterday, or that was hard yesterday. Now it's easy. I can do more. And I find these voices inside my head pushing me to put more weight on there that never were there.
Yeah. In my opinion, like there's so many parallels between fitness and life. We talked earlier about, going through hardships. It's the same concept with, say, strength training, for example. Like if you never lift something, you never pick something up, you're not going to get any stronger. It's the same thing in life. You never go through those hardships, you're not going to get any stronger as an individual, and the lessons I've learned through fitness, like discipline and perseverance and resiliency and humility, those things carry on to countless areas of your life. And that's why fitness is so powerful to me.
Well, Chris, thank you for sharing your awesome wisdom and stories. And thank you for coming on the show.
I appreciate it, man. I love the message and I love the mission you're on here.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That's a wrap. And thank you for listening to today's show, and I really hope you enjoyed it. The lifeblood of any new podcast are the reviews. If you haven't reviewed the podcast yet on iTunes, I would really appreciate it, and you will help us get the message out to even more military veteran dads. As John Maxwell says, if there is hope in the future, there is power in the present. Dads, it's time to come home.